Good evening and welcome. Tonight we'll be going over the history and geography of Dominica. So I don't have any books to show you about Dominica, so after I go over geography and history, I'll pull out my tablet so I can show you the island on Google Earth. Let me grab my pencil. First of all, the name is pronounced Dominica, although it is acceptable in English to say Dominica. There's a couple of places like that in the world, like over in Africa there's Niger, but in English it's acceptable to say Niger, but it's really pronounced Niger, That's like this. This island is called Dominica. It is acceptable to say Dominica, but no one really says that. So, and I think that's because this island is predominantly French speaking, or at this point French Creole, right? Like Dominican Creole. So in French, this is Dominique. So Dominica, right? For its official name. We'll talk about its French background and its history too. So Dominica is pretty unique among all the other Caribbean islands. I'll show you on Google Earth too where it is. There's a chain of islands called the Lesser Antilles, the Greater Antilles being like Cuba, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, the big islands over there. The Lesser Antilles are the smaller islands. Dominica is officially part of the Windward Islands. It is the northernmost of the Windward Islands, but it's also considered the southernmost of the Leeward Islands in a way, because it's right on the border there. It's one of those things that really doesn't matter, right? But anyway, the nearest places to it are actually France, since there's the island of Guadeloupe to the north and the island of Martinique to the south, which are both departments of France. So that's interesting, I suppose. This island, like I said, this island is unique among the other Caribbean islands because it is extensively forested, like far more than any other Caribbean island. And you can really see just how mountainous it is based on this map, because you can see all the rivers coming down from the central spine of the island. This is all foresty, and you can even see some of the national parks too. This island is very volcanic. It's part of a big chain of volcanic islands. Dominica has 10 active volcanoes on it. The highest is right here. It is Morne Diaboli. Let me see. I get it confused. This one's Mon El Diab. This is Diablotin. There we go. Diablotin. Mon Diablo. It's Creole. It sounds like French, but it's not French at all. So it's very hard for me as a French speaker. Anyway, that's the highest point in Dominica. But the more famous of its parks is this one over here. This is Mont Piton, or Three Peak Mountain. And it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site since it's very perfectly preserved and has a lot of interesting features in it, including the second largest hot spring in the world. It's known as Boiling Lake because it's literally a boiling lake. Steam and all that coming off of it. Highly volcanic island. Nothing's really like exploded anytime in recent history, but there's steam and stuff like that. There's even, I'll show you a picture on Google Earth. There's this one bay. It's not on this map, but if you snorkel down in the water, you'll see the bubbles from the volcanic activity rising up, so they call it Champagne Bay. Pretty neat. There's lots of neat little volcanic things all over Dominica, little hot springs and little tiny fumaroles, things like that. It's a very fiery island, I suppose. And like I said, covered in jungle. A lot of animals that went extinct on other islands still exist on this island because the forests have been so well preserved over time. There's way too many waterfalls to mention because there's so many rivers coming down. This island gets so much rain. It's one of the more rainier islands in the Caribbean. So there's just constantly water gushing down from these big mountains up here. it's such a beautiful place. I can't wait to show you. But let's talk about some of its cities, because you can see all the towns and cities around the coast here, since all of the interior is preserved. The capital city is Rousseau, right here. All these little towns I'll show you on Google Earth are in like various little valleys between the mountains. It's so pretty. There are a couple of interesting ones. The town of Massacre always pops up in Dominica trivia, apparently. This town was founded after an actual massacre occurred over on St. Kitts and Nevis, which I believe I mentioned that when I covered St. Kitts and Nevis. Basically, the native people over there were massacred, and those who survived came here and formed the town of Massacre to commemorate that very sad event. There's also a place, it's not on this map, it's about here or so. This is the Kalinongo territory, and the Kalinongo are a Carib people, and it's, I believe, the only place left where there are actual Carib people, like 100% Carib-blooded people living, and they do a lot of the same things that their ancestors did. They try to live their like ancient traditional lives as much as possible, mostly so that like other people can experience it, but you know, they have regular houses and lives and stuff, but it's like a little living historical center with the actual descendants of the people. But that's all that's left of their territory. They used to control the whole island. Let's see, I'm looking at my notes, see if there's anything else I wanted to mention. I think anything else I just want to show you on Google Earth, because even though this is a very detailed map, it doesn't show you the things I want to show you. So we'll look at pictures of it. Let's talk about history, because like I said, the Carib people lived on the island. Before them, the Arawak people lived here. The Caribs, like I've said in pretty much all of my Caribbean videos, the Caribs were excessively violent people. They came and either killed all the Arawak people or kicked them all out and sent them packing. And they took over the island. Christopher Columbus sailed by, specifically on Sunday, November 3rd, 1493. And he named it, not Domingo, but the Italian word for Sunday, because Domingo is the Spanish word. I don't know Italian well enough to know the days of the week, but he named it Sunday in Italian, which is how we get the name Dominica and Dominique, and all of those Sunday-related words. And the Spanish did try to come by and colonize the island, but the Caribs pushed them out. Like I said, excessively violent people. France claimed the island in 1632, since Spain wasn't going to grab it, but they did not settle here because the Caribs were excessively violent. And the French actually made a pact with England, agreeing not to settle this island because it was too dangerous to do so. But, like I said, France had Guadeloupe and Martinique, and this island was right in the middle, and it was covered in forest and big, bountiful trees, so they would come by and get some timber so that they could sell it, and, you know, it just got too tempting, so they kept coming back to establish a timber industry, and they started to officially settle here in 1690. They also started coffee plantations as well, and when you have plantations like that, you need people to work on them, so they started bringing over kidnapped Africans by an excessively large amount. There's quite a lot on this island. And eventually France made what they call Dominique into a colony, and many French people moved to the island to seek their fortune so they can grow plantations and become wealthy. A lot of people came from other French islands to move here and exploit this very lush, untouched island. But the British came and conquered it in 1761. Britain and France were fighting the 7 Years' War, and they really took it out on a lot of their territories in the Caribbean. After France lost the 7 Years' War, they ceded it over to Britain, but they tried to take it back multiple times. They actually did for a minute in 1778, because, like I said, there's a lot of French people living here. They really didn't want to be a British place. They all spoke French and did French things, so when France tried to take it back, they were very much in support of that, but the British kicked them out. And France tried again in 1795 and 1805, apparently mainly because they had just lost Haiti to the Haitian Revolution, their most valuable island, so they were trying to just get whatever they could, but the British beat them out. So eventually down the road, slavery is abolished in the 1830s in the British Empire, and a legislative assembly is formed to govern things on the island. And since there are so many like black people, mixed people, so on, like non-white people basically on this island, the legislative assembly becomes majority black, right? So that's not good for Britain apparently. So they decided to make Dominica a crown colony in 1896 so that they could have more say over who gets to hold political power, so they could put more white people in charge and make sure that black people had less rights, basically, was the whole point of that, which obviously got people pretty mad. Eventually, they started to form the Representative Government Association, and the formal way, not like the hostile takeover, but the formal political way of gaining power, they slowly but surely got elected back into the legislative assembly. So by like the 1950s, it was majority black again. And that helped with seeking independence, which they were granted on November 3rd, 1978. That was definitely done on purpose. There's no way there's a coincidence that it's the same day that Columbus named the island, right? November 3rd. It's officially known as the Commonwealth of Dominica, and it is officially part of the British Commonwealth, but it is a republic. It's not a traditional Commonwealth country where they recognize Queen Elizabeth II as their monarch, and they don't have a governor general. They elect their president and prime minister. The prime minister is the one that holds the real power. President's mostly just a ceremonial role. And their political beginnings had a bit of a rocky start. The first prime minister was voted out of office in no confidence votes. He was nearly thrown out in a coup. There were a couple of coup attempts, but they failed like miserably, apparently. And in 1980, the first female Caribbean prime minister was elected to Dominica. She's Eugenia Charles. She ruled the country until the like mid to late 1990s, I believe. I didn't write it down. It was around then. The biggest events in Dominica have been natural disasters, very sadly. In 1980, they were hit directly by Category 5 Hurricane David, wiped out a lot of the island, and Hurricane Allen came by not long after that, like a few months later, made things a lot worse. In 1995, Hurricane Luis hit the island. But most devastatingly, in 2015, Tropical Storm Erica hit. And you're thinking, oh, just a tropical storm. It wasn't even a full-force hurricane, right? It triggered landslides from all of these mountainy volcanoes and really destroyed a lot, and people lost their lives in those landslides. And then in 2017, Category 5 Hurricane Maria hit directly and very nearly destroyed like the entire island. It wiped out 90% of the buildings. It wiped out the entire banana crop. Like the entire banana industry was destroyed immediately. So they've been rebuilding from that, and they got a lot of aid from other countries as well. So, you know, that's the concern of Dominica, is that it's right in that hurricane belt. So, you know, as hurricanes get stronger and stronger due to climate change, that's something they really need to prepare for. It's very scary on an island like this. And Dominica doesn't heavily rely on tourism like other Caribbean islands. Their main focus is preserving all of these beautiful forests and, you know, the various protected areas. So tourists will come to see the hot springs and volcanoes and the endemic animals, things like that. But you're not really going to find any resorts and like luxurious beaches, anything like that. It's not that kind of place. That's not what they're going for at all. They're strictly agricultural in terms of like industry, and obviously preserving the natural beauty of the island. So anyway, that's about it for history. Let me pull out my tablet so I can show you just how beautiful it is. Okay, so here we are. Here's Dominica. You can see Guadalupe up here. There's Martinique. Let me zoom out some more so you can really see where we are. Make sure that there's a pin in Dominica so we don't lose it. So here's the Caribbean. You can see, there's the Greater Antilles. These are the Lesser Antilles. So that's where we are in the world. There's Dominica. Bum, bum, bum. Ta-da. There we go. So look how green it is, right? It's very, very beautiful. You can see all the different divisions of the country there. And let's start off looking at some beautiful pictures. Gorgeous waterfalls. This must be Roseau. Yeah, Roseau from Morne Bruce. Beautiful waters. So just like a very gorgeous jungly tropical paradise. Get a horse tour there. This is Boiling Lake for sure, or at least one of the main ones, Here's Champagne Bay. You can see all the bubbles coming up from the volcanic activity. And yeah, it's just a very beautiful, unspoiled place right in the middle of the Caribbean. This is Boiling Lake, or at least a good boiling day. And yeah, so, no luxurious beaches or anything. There comes a cruise ship. And yeah, so many places to explore. So what should we look at? Let's look at Roseau first. Right here. So here's Roseau, the capital city. You can definitely see where the cruise ships come. And let's just look at some pictures of Roseau, even though we did see a couple already. So it does have that long, French history. It's got beautiful French style buildings along with Caribbean style infused, and that's a huge ship. My goodness. Uh-oh, that's not good. Dominica Museum, or Dominica. I still slip up. It mostly looks like oh, that's neat. People coming off their ship and taking pictures of it from the distance. So there's that. Let's check out the Kalinongo Village, and then we'll look at some of the mountains. Let me find it. There it is. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. So, for the most part, traditional houses, traditional customs, beautiful scenery. So you can come and basically see how people used to live. I wonder, hold on. I wonder, I don't know this. Are these stone heads meant to represent the real heads that people would cut off and put on stakes outside? I doubt it, but wouldn't that be interesting? That's pretty. Oh, look, you could take a little tourist picture. Say, I was here in Kalinongo territory. So yeah, it's mostly to preserve their way of life so that other people can come and see and experience how people used to live on this island. Very cool, I think. Let's look at some of the natural areas. Let's look at the famous ones. Over here we have Morne Pito National Park. And we can see some of the volcanic activity happening there. Some steam coming out of the ground. Beautiful beautiful rivers, just gorgeous scenery, waterfalls, a boiling lake, hot springs galore, and just true, like, natural, lush beauty. I'm sorry if I'm going too fast. I should probably slow down. Some more hot springs. Yes, you're now entering the national park. So that's pretty much what Dominica looks like. I want to give you a 3D look at what it's like. So, like, let's head over to some of these villages over here and these parishes. So you could see some volcanic-y ridges. So anyway, all of these villages are in these valleys. You can see the perspective there. There we go, that's better. So anywhere where there's a valley, they can build a little village. Over here. Over the jungle. Over the mountains. Here we go. Let's see this side. Pretty much the same over here in that if there's a gap, there's village. It's so gorgeous. So this is the main airport, so if you were to fly into Dominica, you would come here. Yeah, that's where we were, the Kalinongo Village. And yeah, a lot of these places I looked through, they don't have photos of some of the little spots. You've seen all the waterfalls. I'm not going to show you anymore. But yeah, anytime there's a gap, there's a village. Isn't that interesting? Can you imagine the scenery, waking up every day and seeing big, beautiful, lush green mountains like that? Very, very neat. There's the southernmost point over here, but it's all blurry. But anyway, let's look at the Sulfur Springs National Park. I want to see some hot springs. Ooh. I think this is the one I was reading about, that this smell of sulfur is like super strong, that most people just can't handle it. Which, like, that's kind of the point when you go to a hot spring. It's gonna smell. Sulfur does not smell good. Hot springs do not smell good, but apparently this place is like super intense smelling. It's no wonder that there's so many like Diablo themed mountains here, because you've got the smell of sulfur and the steam, the boiling volcanoes. Very devil themed, isn't it? So anyway, I'm gonna leave it there for tonight. I think you get the gist of it. This is the second largest city, Portsmouth, by the way. Which, large city, Dominica, means like a tiny place everywhere else. But this is Dominica, this beautiful green jewel of the Caribbean. Let's zoom out. There we go. So thank you so much for watching. I do hope that you found this video relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a